Let's be honest, if you have followed Ripple or XRP for any length of time, you have seen the same headlines over and over again. Ripple is done, XRP is dead, the banks have moved on, but something big is about to happen that tells a completely different story. Ripple Swell 2025 is coming up in New York City this November, and the guest list already looks like the future of money. We are talking about Nasdaq, BlackRock, CME Group, BNY Mellon, Fidelity, Franklin Templeton, Citi, DBS, Societe Generale, MasterCard, and even lawmakers like Congressman Richie Torres. If you recognize those names, you know they represent the foundation of the global financial system. When that level of leadership shows up to a Ripple event, it is not because they are curious, it is because something real is taking shape. And this year's Swell conference is shaping up to be much more than a corporate event or marketing showcase. It is a statement. It shows that traditional finance and blockchain are no longer living in separate worlds. They are starting to merge, and Ripple has placed itself directly in the middle of that bridge. For newcomers to crypto, let's make this simple. Ripple is not just another crypto token project or a speculative play. It is a company that has spent more than a decade building actual financial infrastructure that global institutions can use today. RippleNet connects banks and payment providers across borders. Metaco, which Ripple acquired in 2023, provides institutional custody for digital assets. Standard Custody, acquired in 2024, delivers regulated U.S. trust licensing so Ripple can custody and move value inside the American financial system. Hidden Road, now rebranded as Ripple Prime, handles institutional liquidity and brokerage. Treasury, another 2025 acquisition, links more than 13,000 banks that move over $12 trillion each year. And RLUSD, Ripple's upcoming regulated U.S. dollar stablecoin, is built for exactly the kind of settlement and treasury management that these institutions need. When you put all of those pieces together, you start to see a full end-to-end financial stack. Payments, custody, liquidity, and treasury management, all working together, all built for compliance, and all connected through Ripple's technology. That is why this year's Swell matters so much. It is not just about what Ripple will announce, but who will be there to hear it. Now think about who is on that list. Nasdaq manages the technology behind global exchanges and listings. BNY Mellon and Fidelity hold assets for some of the largest funds in existence. Franklin Templeton has already tokenized a money market fund. Citi and DBS run international payments for governments and global firms. Societe Generale was one of the first major banks to issue regulated stablecoins in Europe. These are not startups chasing hype. These are the institutions that plan decades ahead, and they are preparing for the next evolution of finance. Swell 2025 is their opportunity to see Ripple's entire system in action. It brings together every layer that global finance needs to operate on-chain: custody, liquidity, compliance, and settlement, and shows how they fit together. And every single one of those layers connects directly to the XRP ledger, also known as the XRPL. The XRPL is an open-source blockchain network that has been operating since 2012. It runs without mining, it confirms transactions in seconds, and it supports native tokenization, stablecoins, and automated market makers. XRP, the native asset of that ledger, is used to pay fees, move liquidity, and bridge currencies instantly. When banks and funds begin using tokenized assets, stablecoins, and other digital instruments, they will need fast, liquid pathways to move between them. That is exactly where XRP fits. For people who are new to crypto, it helps to think of Ripple and the XRPL as the infrastructure layer for digital money, the invisible rails underneath what the world will soon call tokenized finance. You might not see it every day, but it powers everything that sits above it. And for those who have been here a long time, this is the payoff for years of patience. Ripple's long-term strategy is finally coming into full view. The acquisitions, the partnerships, the focus on regulation, and the constant engineering improvements across the XRPL were not random. They were designed to build an institutional-grade financial platform that could survive regulation and scale with global adoption. Institutional adoption is not a dream for some future date. It is already happening, and Swell 2025 will put it in front of the world. Let's zoom in on what makes this event so different from previous years. Past Swell conferences highlighted partnerships, corridors, and pilot programs. This one features regulators, lawmakers, asset managers, and infrastructure providers all in one place. You have the CME Group, which handles derivatives and futures. You have Nasdaq, the operator of the stock exchange itself. You have BNY Mellon, the world's oldest custodian bank, and Franklin Templeton, one of the first to tokenize funds. Add MasterCard, Citi, and DBS, and you suddenly have a full ecosystem of payments, custody, liquidity, and policy represented on a single stage. That is not a coincidence. It signals that Ripple's technology stack has matured enough for large-scale deployment. If you have been following Ripple's development path, this is exactly how it was designed to unfold. First came the network and payment rails, then came custody and licensing, then liquidity and stablecoin issuance. And now the final step, integration with institutional finance through regulated partners and existing infrastructure. For years, Ripple has been criticized for focusing on compliance and regulation rather than speed or hype. But that strategy is now paying off. By building for the rules that already govern finance, Ripple positioned itself to become the blockchain company that traditional institutions can actually work with. This is why the presence of lawmakers like Richie Torres is also important. It shows that policymakers are not just watching from the sidelines, they are part of the discussion. It suggests that regulation is moving toward frameworks that allow this kind of technology to thrive rather than get buried under uncertainty. For the XRPL itself, Swell 2025 could be a turning point. Developers and builders will likely get a wave of new interest from institutions exploring tokenized funds, payments, and liquidity. As more real-world assets come on-chain, liquidity on the XRPL's built-in decentralized exchange will deepen, and use cases for XRP will grow. If you think about the timing, it lines up perfectly. Tokenization is the next major frontier in finance. Every major bank and asset manager is testing it. The XRPL already supports token issuance, automated market making, and sidechain expansion. Ripple now provides the institutional front end and compliance layer that connects that blockchain technology to real-world institutions. That is why this event matters so much. It is not just about showcasing Ripple's success, it is about demonstrating that regulated blockchain finance is no longer theory, it is reality. Now let's address the bigger picture. When people say Ripple is dead or XRP has no use, they are usually talking about short-term price action or headlines from the past. But institutions do not care about speculation. They care about efficiency, regulation, and risk management. And that is exactly what Ripple has spent years delivering. Ripple's network allows money to move faster, cheaper, and with full compliance transparency. That is what financial institutions want. Not hype, but reliability. Swell 2025 will likely serve as a showcase for Ripple's progress on multiple fronts. Expect deeper discussions about RLUSD, the stablecoin that will act as the US dollar settlement layer for Ripple's network. Expect more details about Ripple Prime and its integration with institutional liquidity venues. And expect renewed attention on how Ripple plans to connect banks, corporates, and on-chain liquidity through a single regulated infrastructure. For the XRPL community, this is validation. It proves that the technology that started over a decade ago was ahead of its time. It also reminds us that real adoption happens slowly, through partnerships, compliance, and trust. That is exactly what Ripple has built. So whether you are brand new to crypto or you have been here since 2017, the takeaway is the same. Ripple is not behind, Ripple is ahead. While others were distracted by headlines, Ripple was building the foundation that the next generation of finance will rely on. And now, the biggest names on Wall Street are about to see it for themselves. Ripple Swell 2025 will not be the end of this story, but it could be the moment the narrative changes. The moment the world realizes that Ripple's technology, the XRPL network, and XRP are not fading away. They are just getting started. This channel is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research and keep the discussion respectful. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking, subscribing, leaving a comment, or sharing it with a friend.